Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast with me, your host Luke, the human. Hope you're doing well, hope you're good, as per usual. It's a bit muggy and horrible here in the UK at the moment. It's still nothing but rain, but here I am, plodding on in the warmth, next to my computer, next to my mic, recording this lovely episode for you. And it's a really, really good one, because this one is pure nostalgia for me. You know, I've been listening to all your Beans feedback, I've been looking at the analytics, I've been looking at the views, and animated movies are the way to go. It's what you like, it's what you watch and listen to the most of, so that's what I'm going to be looking into a lot more. But also, I'm glad that you did that, because I love animated movies, as you all know. I gush over them enough where it must be obvious by now. But this movie that we're going to be talking about today is pure nostalgia nuggets for me, so I can't wait to dive in and eat them all. But before we get into all of that, gotta do a bit of housekeeping first. Make sure that you follow me on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod to keep up to date on anything that I am doing and that sort of thing. Also, if you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. You know how to do it by now. If you are subscribed, don't forget to ring that bell to be updated whenever I release a new episode every Sunday. So, the movie that we're going to be looking at today is the 2001 classic animated movie from my childhood, Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. I absolutely love this movie. I go bonkers for it. I do. I have so much nostalgia for this movie. It's literally going to be a story time right now because I love this film so much. I remember I had it on VHS. And I watched it over and over and over again. And then when DVD came out, I got it on DVD. I actually remember, right, this is how old I am. I don't remember many other movies doing this, but I remember Jimmy Neutron distinctly had this. But when I got the VHS video, I think if I remember correctly, I think the video was orange, because most Nickelodeon videotapes were orange. I remember I had the Rugrats in Paris, that was orange. But also, if I remember this correctly, there was a miniature foldable frisbee that had like the poster on the front of Jimmy Neutron with the big egg bloke behind him, and all the other gang, Sheen and all that, and Carl. I remember having that, and I'd throw it around my room while watching the movie. But I've never known any other VHS film, or even a DVD, that matter, to come with like a free gift, like a toy. But yeah, it came with a little frisbee, and I thought it was cool. I don't really have it anymore. I don't actually have the VHS anymore. But I remember it clearly because I remember it being orange. And again, I think most of the Nickelodeon VHS tapes were orange anyway, because again, it was the Nickelodeon thing to be orange and green with slime. I even believed at one point that like Nickelodeon ran on slime, because again that was the narrative that we had as a child, and it still is now as an adult, but it was my dream as a kid to be slimed and to be gunged, because I used to watch, obviously I love Nickelodeon growing up. I used to watch Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Boomerang, as well as like the Disney Channel as well. But it was mostly those three channels that I would watch on repeat, sporadically. Changing the channels, like Ben 10 on one channel, Scooby Doo on the other. Then I'd go watch like SpongeBob or Jimmy Neutron, or even Danny Phantom and things like that on Nickelodeon. And I always used to watch the awards, the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, and just watch people get gunged. I'm like, I want to get gunged. I want to get slimed. But I haven't, as of yet, I'm not famous, and I haven't wrote any plays, or I'm not in anything like that, so I'll probably never get gunged. But I guess I could buy slime and gunge myself. But it's just not the same. But there's a lot of love for this movie. This is a movie that I've watched repeatedly many times. I even watch it now as an adult, and I still find great enjoyment out of it. It's a movie I mostly watch with my mum, because my mum loves this movie just as much as I do. And it's a movie that we quote constantly. We quote this movie all the time. There are moments where it's like, oh, Jimmy, this astronaut food tastes great. It's toothpaste, Carl. Ah, Minty. Oh, Gene, it's not rocket science. Oh, wait, hold on a second. It is rocket science. No fuel rods, Gene. Or my personal favorite, which I do this all the time. Don't judge me. Is I'm peeing in the shower. I'm still doing it. Go, go, go. Whoopee cushion or non-whoopee cushion? I'll have what she's throwing. Yeah, I've watched this movie too many times, but I love it. It's that's the whole point of nostalgia. That's the whole point of nostalgia nuggets, member berries, is to kind of be like, oh, you remember? I remember. And again, this is one of the few movies that me and my mom watched together, and we laugh as much as we did when we first watched it when I was a little bean, and now being a big bean, a big broad bean, that ginger broad bean, shall we say? I still find it funny, still find it hilarious. Many times where I've been stuck in life, and again, don't judge me, I'm a child. But there are many times where I'm like, what would Ultra Lord do? What would Ultra Lord do in this situation? Sheen, one of my favorite. I love Carl. I just love the idea of it. I wanted purple flurp growing up. I know it didn't exist, but I wanted to try Purple Flurp. I wanted an Ultra Lord t-shirt. I still want an Ultra Lord t-shirt. I know on Amazon you can buy Jimmy Neutron's, his iconic shirt with the Jimmy Neutron sort of symbol on it. But you can't buy an Ultra Lord t-shirt. Now, maybe if I went to like a Nickelodeon World or something like that, they probably sell them. But I can't find them anywhere apart from I think it's like a Redbubble or Redbox. Somebody's actually made it themselves. But the postage and packaging is a nightmare. But I've always wanted an Ultra Lord t-shirt, an Ultra Lord figure. Yeah, there are many times where I go, what would Ultra Lord do? And I can't be the only one. There's got to be other people listening to this who are also fans of Jimmy Neutron who also be like, what would Ultra Lord do? Like, probably wouldn't get it tattooed, but if I was brave enough, yeah, I'd probably get it and be like, what would Ultra Lord do? People have like, what would the Doctor do and all that. Like, I'd have what would Ultra Lord do because I need to know. One of my favorites is when like he's like you've got Oobla with the toaster, and he's like, you can tell like, how happy and excited I'm talking about this movie, because I'm just so excited to watch it again and to relish in the memories of this movie. But there was a moment where you have Oobla, and he's like, "Hello, where is your leader?" And then the Emperor's like, "Oobla, stop it, it's Toast." "Oh, hello, Toast. I greatly admire your ship." you know. It's stupid, I know, but I find it funny. Or when Carl touches a llama, he's like, oh, llama, llama, llama. It, yeah, I'm a child, I know, but that's why you beans and you folks and that's why you come here to listen to me relish and in just talk so highly and um, much about movies like this, because this is where not just the podcast lies, but also where my heart lies. My heart lies with the nostalgia. My heart lies with the ways it was when I was a child. And I don't have the movie on DVD, sadly. And again, I don't know where the VHS tape gone. Probably gone where most VHS went into the dump or went to charity shops. But this movie is still one that I remember highly. It's still one that I watch repeatedly. And again, no matter how old I get, it's a movie that I will always watch and I'll always quote, and I'll always enjoy. I always will. So I'm looking forward to watching this movie again for the millionth time for this review. It has been a while, I'll be honest. I haven't watched it this year, which I know is a bit sacrilege for me. But it's one of those movies like The Iron Giant, like Chicken Run, that I try to watch at least once a year. Just to kind of just to recalculate my younger heart, my child being, to be like, look, I'm still a child, I'm still young, I'm not an adult, I'm still like 4 years old. Well, practically this movie came out in 2001. I was born in '98, so I was like 2. So I probably shouldn't even remember it, but I do. It's like it's a keystone. It's just embedded into my head. I even remember watching the Jimmy Neutron TV show. I didn't watch all the episodes, but I remember watching that and enjoying that on Cartoon Network. I even watched Planet Sheen, which wasn't that great, to be honest. But watching Jimmy Neutron, and I remember like I was a big fan of Fairly Odd Parents, and they did the crossover episode between Jimmy Neutron and Fairly Odd Parents, and Jimmy went into the Fairly Odd Parents universe, and he, like, the way he looked, he was designed to look as if he belonged there. And then you had Timmy Turner from the Fairly Odd Parents universe come to the Jimmy Neutron universe, and then he looks like a Jimmy Neutron character. You know, when they changed designs, they changed looks, and it was a big crossover event, and it was it was incredible. Nickelodeon did a lot of these. They did it with like the Wild Thornberrys and Rugrats, and Danny Phantom, and the like, and they always did it, and it always worked. And it was always like, especially as a kid, it was like, oh my god, you know, my favorite characters are interacting with each other. This is you know. So I love that sort of thing, and one day I will get around to doing like the Rugrats movies, and I will get around to doing um Iron Giant and things like that. But today I thought I'd figure out, because I know you, again, like I said at the beginning, I know you all like the animation, and when I talk about animated movies, so this is one to be something that I want to be looking to a lot more. A lot of older animated movies, a lot of ones from my childhood, as well as a lot older ones that I either haven't watched and that sort of thing. So look forward to more of that coming. But before I obviously get into the review, one thing I like to do is I like to talk about the production. I like, because again, not just, I don't want to just talk about the movie, but I also like to talk about animation and what goes into animating. So Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, came out in December 21st, 2001 in the United States and the rest of the world. Backed by a strong pre-sale campaign, Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius was released on, again, December 21st, 2001, and it was a box office success, grossing $103 million worldwide against a $30 million budget. It earned generally positive reviews for its characters, humor, vocal performances, and sense of charm, fun, and wit. It was nominated for the inaugural Academy Award for Best Animated Feature in 2001, ultimately losing to Shrek. It was the only animated Nickelodeon film to be nominated in that category for nearly a decade, until Rango, which came out in 2011, was nominated and won. Due to its success, the film was continued into an animated television series called The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, which premiered on July the 20th, 2002, and it ended on November 25th, 2006. 4 years later, a spin-off series called Planet Sheen was produced, focusing on Jimmy's friend Sheen. This series premiered on October the 2nd, 2010, and ended on February the 15th, 2013. So as for development, the idea for a series about a boy with super genius powers was first conceived in the 1980s by John A. Davis, who scripted and storyboarded a short narrative titled Runaway Rocket Boy, centering around a character named Johnny Quasar, inspired by a facetious nickname that his summer co-workers had coined for him in his youth, who builds a rocket ship and runs away from his parents. Davis stated in an episode of the Nickelodeon Animation Podcast, which if you're interested, check it out, it's a fantastic podcast, that he initially wrote the concept with the intention of creating it as a live-action film with special effects and matte shots, even going so far as to apply for a grant to fund the project, but found that getting such an investment was difficult since the film was not educational or informative. The idea lay dormant for several years until Davis came across the abandoned script while in the process of moving. Around the time, Davis, Dallas-based studio DNA Productions, hi, I'm Paul, those guys, had just begun experimenting with the use of computer animation after obtaining copies of Lightwave 3D. In turn, Davis realized that the film would be fitting as a CGI film, since all the science fiction set pieces could be entirely modeled in 3D. Davis, alongside co-founder Keith Alcorn, created a 40-second proof of concept demo film which depicted Johnny and his robot dog Goddard flying through an asteroid belt and greeting the viewers. Simultaneously, Davis and Alcorn worked to create a story bible outlining a potential TV series. The demo short was shown off in 1995 at the CGI convention, where it was entered into a competition of Lightwave films. The demo quickly gathered notoriety in the computer animation industry, receiving frequent press coverage in magazines and winning 2 Waverly Awards for one awards for one, the best character animation, and another for best in show. Among people who caught wind of the film was Steve Odenkirk, founder of O Entertainment, who saw a still shot of Johnny and Goddard in a CGI magazine. Odenkirk, a strong backer of computer animation, was impressed by the characters' designs, stating in an interview that the images particularly stood out to him because it seemed fun compared to the mostly photorealistic work being done with computer animation at the time. He cold called Davis requesting to see a tape of the full short after watching the demo as well as seeing the show Bible, which Davis and Alcorn had developed. Odenkirk expressed interest in helping to pitch their concept to different networks. In fall 1995, the idea was pitched to Nickelodeon, who expressed immediate interest in the idea. L.B. Hedgick, the then president of Nick, was particularly impressed, I'll get more words out, Luke. Coining to be half Bart Simpson and half Albert Einstein, he strongly praised Johnny's blend, personality, and as an adventurous and intelligent character, and one grounded in the reality of childhood, which, according to him, made him the perfect Nick Kid. Following positive reception, Nickelodeon commissioned for a 13-minute pilot episode to be created. After several years of going through the review process, the episode began production in late 1997 and was completed in 1998, the year I was born. The name Johnny Quasar was changed as at the request of Nickelodeon, who did not want the character to be confused with similarly named ones such as Johnny Quest, Captain Quasar, and the like. So Davis brainstormed other character names while walking his dog around the neighborhood block, eventually coming up with the final name, Jimmy Neutron. As the plot was completed, Nickelodeon executives who were impressed by the pilot and still enthusiastic about the show's potential raised the prospect of creating a theatrical film to accompany the TV series. Much to the surprise of Davis and his team at the studio, during the initial pitch to Nickelodeon, Odenkirk had highlighted the idea that using computer animation would allow the same models and assets to be reused between both a film and a TV show, an idea which Nick held strong faith in. Davis further suggested that the feature film be created first, since the characters being modelled could be created at a higher quality than they would have with a TV budget. Although Nick was worried that it would be more difficult to attract a movie-going audience without the TV show to build an install base for the series, those concerns were answered in a series of short TV into serials, which would begin airing in order to build up hype for the upcoming film. With a budget of roughly $30 million, production of Jimmy Neutron Boy Jr. was greenlit in fall 1999 and began work on a script for the film. Production officially started in February 2000 under the direction of Davis in order to speed up the pace of work for a feature film. The company's staff count was considerably increased from 30 to around 150 employees, and the studio's workspace was also reformed in order to fit such a team of filmmakers. The film was completed in 24 months, roughly half that in which most other CGI films were completed. So that's an idea of the development. There's a lot more that I can go into, but that's going to give you an idea of what they went in for the development itself. So that is the sort of introduction. This bit I'm really looking forward to, because even though I've seen this movie a million times, like I said, I haven't seen this movie yet this year. So I can't wait to actually watch the movie now and then to come back later and finish off this review and just to talk about how, and basically gush more about how much I love this movie. In my opinion, this movie's a masterpiece. It can do no wrong. And again, that might be the rose-tinted glasses. That might be the sort of just the nostalgia of it. I don't know. And usually I try my best to kind of have my reviewer hat on and try to kind of put nostalgia to one side and kind of give a sort of non-biased review. But I feel like for this review, it's just better to be honest, just be full nostalgic, just to give my all my opinions, as I have done already in the introduction. Just but look, I love this movie. It is my childhood, and I'm going to gush over it, and you're going to sit and listen to me do it. So, if that sounds like something that you're interested in, or that you want to hear more about, by all means, please do stick around. I'm going to go off now and watch Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, and I'll be back with you in a second. If you want to pause here and go watch the movie and come back and join me and relish in the entertainment, you can do that as well. If not, here's the review. Right, so I've just finished watching Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, and honestly, I love it. I do. Which was no doubt. There was no doubt I was going to love it. After that introduction, there was no doubt that I was not going to love this movie. Even if I tried to sit here as a reviewer, not as a fan, I would still find enjoyment of it. It's full of nostalgia. I have pure sort of love for this movie. It is a cornerstone of who I am. Funny enough, as I was watching this and writing down notes, I actually realised that majority of the characters that I loved and admired and wanted to be growing up were boy geniuses. Like Dexter's Laboratory, Jimmy Neutron, George Shrinks, the lad from Meet the Robinsons, and so on. It was these characters who were incredibly smart, but were the odd ones out, who didn't really fit in anywhere. And again, I always felt like that growing up. I was always the weird kid. I didn't have many friends, but I always felt like the odd one out. So I always seemed to connect to these characters, but also want to be them, to be the inventor, to change the world, invent new things, have weird, strange gadgets and that sort of thing. So it's kind of interesting that I seem to gravitate and sort of want to be these characters a lot more. And that was something that I noticed, that growing up, that was sort of the archetype of the characters that I admired the most watching on TV. And also I was quite lucky that these characters were on TV around the time that I was growing up as well. So it's rather a little interesting tidbit that I noticed there. But yeah, pure nostalgia. One thing that I want to do quickly before actually getting the review, which is something that I missed and forgot to do in the introduction, was to talk about the plot. So, 11-year-old boy genius Jimmy Neutron lives in Retroville with his parents, Judy and Hugh. Hugh's hilarious in this. This guy. He's a child, but as a man. He's incredibly dumb and stupid but funny, and it just makes you wonder at times, what does Judy see in him? But again, this is the kids' movie. A spontaneously, idiotically weird father is probably just normal for these sort of movies, as well as I was saying, as well as his robot dog Goddard, Jimmy's friends Carl Weezer and his friend Sheen, and his long-standing rival, intelligent classmate Cindy Vortex, which I never knew that was her last name, but very interesting, teases him for his small stature. After Jimmy launches a communication satellite into space, hoping to contact alien life, he crashes his makeshift rocket into his house's roof, upsetting his mother. The next day, Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen learn of the grand opening of Retroland, an amusement park. A popular kid, Nick Dean, convinces the boys to sneak out and attend. Jimmy's mother refuses to let him attend the park that night after his jetpack accidentally sets fire to the curtains in the house. She grounds him. Jimmy, taking Nick's advice, uses the shrink ray invention to sneak out and meet Carl and Sheen at Retroland for a night of fun. Meanwhile, Jimmy's satellite is intercepted by the Yokians, a race of egg-like aliens from the planet Yokus. Their leader... Oh god, my notes. Oh god, I lost my notes for a second. Their leader, King Goobot, views Jimmy's message and notices a picture featuring his parents. Declaring his search complete, the Yokians arrive on Earth and abduct all the adults in Retroville, except Jimmy's teacher, Miss Fowl, due to her being shrunken down to a small size by Jimmy's shrink ray, which I always thought that was rather odd. When Jimmy does this thing in the movie where he asks Goddard to search for signals for any adult life forms in the city, can't find any, but she's there. Granted, I know she's very tiny like an ant, but for some reason she doesn't show up on the scanner. Again, I know it's a kid's movie, but that always, even when I was a kid, that really sort of confused me. But anyway, we'll gloss over it. As their ships return to space, Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen mistake their departure for Shooting Star, prompting Jimmy to wish their parents were gone. The next morning, all the children notice the parents are missing and party recklessly. At first, having no parents is fun for the children, but then, the following day, they are miserable and realise they need their parents. Jimmy learns that his satellite has been found and deduces the parents have been abducted. He enlists the children to create rocket ships out of Retroland rides, and they blast off into space after their families. Right. So that's the plot. That's give you an idea of of basically what this movie's about. It's not a long movie. It's only about 83 minutes. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. It's not very long. To be honest, it went by a lot quicker than I thought. I remember the movie being longer, but then again, when you were younger, things just felt longer, days felt longer, life felt longer. It's not until you get to an adult you realise actually there's not that much time in the day at all. Life speeds up as you get older. It's very scary. So that's, if you listen to this and you're very young, just get ready for it because time will start to speed up out of nowhere. It's really unfair. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about aging. I'm here to talk about being young again and enjoying movies from our childhood. So, under the view, so straight away, like when we meet Jimmy, he's riding a homemade rocket into the atmosphere. His room is full of gadgets, so it's straight away going to give you the idea that this kid is a boy genius. He even says to the pilots on the ships, he goes, "Hey, nice antiques, got a blast." Pretty much stated straight away that the technology of the time, which was like jet fighters, really out of date. He's in a rocket ship with his throwing car going up to the atmosphere to put out a satellite to communicate with aliens. Like he's way ahead of everybody else in terms of technology and brain power, but he happens to be in the body of an 8-year old, which I always thought Jimmy was a little bit older, but apparently he's 8 in this. Anyway, so you see that, then you see his bedroom. It's full of gadgets. He has a gadget to, which again I know it's cartoon, but growing up I really wanted this bedroom. I wanted to have all these gadgets because I wanted to, again, like to be a Jimmy Neutron like character. I wanted to be a boy genius. I wanted to come into my room and have a robot that would tie my shoelaces for me, and that I could have like a robot dog, and if I like have it being in a rush in the morning, so I could, like, I don't know, um have a machine that would brush my teeth for me, like using like a laser, and do my hair like really cool, and get all my clothes ready and get me dressed. And like, yes, it sounds rather lazy and mundane, but like back in like the beginning of the 2000s, being a young impressionable kid who was just getting into science fiction and animated movies, all this was like, this is the future. I want robots, and I want to be a boy genius, and I want to invent these robots, and I want to change the world and make the world a better place, and all this jazz. And yeah, it was. I wanted to be Jimmy so much. Straight away, like it just shows you in the film that how much of a genius actually is. Like it states, like it's not just Jimmy Neutron boy genius for nothing. This kid is a genius. He's a way ahead of the curve of anybody, not just in his town, probably on his planet as well, in his version of Earth or whatever planet they're on. Um, so that was pretty great. Again, like there's a thing that Jimmy does in this way. He has a thing called a brain blast. He does about 2 or 3 times in the movie. He does it a lot more in the TV show. In the TV show, he does it a lot. But basically, what a brain blast is, for anybody who doesn't know, is basically Jimmy will get in a situation where he has to figure out a combination of things to solve a problem. So he will go think, and then you'd get like the camera would zoom into his ear, and he'd go into his head, and you see like a really science fictiony sort of view of his brain, and his synapses firing. Then there'll be objects appearing in his brain, and he'll get like a toaster and tape and purple flurp, and he'll get an idea, well, brain blast, and then he will realize he'll get the toaster and he'll put purple flurp on it, tape it around, shake up the can, let it loose, and then that's how they got the toaster sort of satellite into the atmosphere when their rocket was basically misfiring and was about to fall out of the sky. And Jimmy has a few moments of these, and I tried doing it many times when I was a kid, where I was like, think, and I was trying to, in my head, I was imagining the same sort of thing that you see in the show. I was trying to imagine it for myself, of like, what would that look like in my head? What if I get this thing and add this in together? And I had notebooks when I was younger. I don't know where those notebooks gone, but I had notebooks where I would write down plans and designs and ideas and things to make life easier for my parents or for myself and stuff like that. And I stopped it for a while, and then I remember when Meet the Robinsons came out, and I restarted it, and I went back to them, and I had ideas of like ways of traveling with like in like a tube, in a pressurized tube and using like a compartment, and that there was no air. And the idea behind it was that you'd have fans, huge industrial, huge. It's a silly idea. Well, I was only really really young, but the idea behind it was that it was like stew because there was no friction. The idea was that you'd have two fans on either side of this propeller, and it would just suck the tube, the capsule, from one part of the country to the next, or even like you could have cross continental ones. Obviously, the whole idea that you need giant like suction fans and the amount of fuel and that, I didn't think about that at the time. I didn't know that was an idea or concept. I just thought two big fans on either side of a tube sucking a capsule with people inside it from one part of the city to the world to the next. Sound like a pretty cool idea. That's just one of the ideas that I still vaguely remember in my head. But there were loads more. I can't remember them sadly. But yeah, I had notebooks, and again, I wanted to be a boy genius, and I had many moments where I was like brain blast, trying to figure it out. I even said it out loud, like, brain blast, So I was very much a nerd, still very much am, and I idolized, the geniuses. I idolized Jim Neutron, and then other people like Einstein and Da Vinci, who is my favorite. Renaissance inventors, painters. Actually, my favorite painter of all time is Vincent van Gogh, but one of my favorite inventors of all time is Leonardo da Vinci. He was, again, like Jimmy Neutron, the head of his time, head of his curve. He just happened to be in Renaissance times, but if he was born nowadays, he probably would have changed the world, as well as Nikola Tesla as well. But yeah, I'm not here to talk about other geniuses. I'm here to talk about the boy genius, Jimmy Neutron. So, moving on. I love Oobla. I absolutely adore Oobla. I quoted him in the introduction, where I actually have a quote in here that I wrote that I will get round to in a minute. But I just love Oobla so much. He's just fantastic. He's silly, but he's like the comic relief. Like there's loads of comic relief in this film, but he's just like the ultimate comic relief. Where he's like, "Oh, don't worry, sir. I'll handle this. Hello, where are you from? Oobla, where is your leader? Oobla, stop it. It's Toast. Oh, hello, Toast." Or there's a moment where God is about to self-destruct. He's like, "Oh, no, bad thing. I'll put it back in." He's like, "We had 10 seconds. Nuclear bomb would destruct in 10 seconds. 10 seconds, but I put it back in." uh, Again, silly. I know, it makes me laugh. Or the moment where Oobla, he's in this little eggshell thing and it cracks. And I know it's very, very silly, but again, it's one little line, but makes me giggle each time. Where the emperor's like, "After them now," and then Ubla's like, "Oh, can please somebody get me a bucket?" I know it's stupid, but it's these little things that just make me laugh. They made me giggle then, and they still make me giggle now. So I just love Ubla. Also, the whole idea and concept behind the aliens stealing the parents to feed them to a chicken god is just fantastic. Actually, I just love the aliens in general because the aliens are all eggs. They're like green slime in little egg shells. And I noticed these details when I was younger, and I really, really love them now as an adult, especially a lover of like conceptual ideas and animation. The whole idea that they're not just little egg people in shells, but their god is a giant alien chicken, and that their ships look like egg cartons, and they have like little chicken heads on them, and even like the way that their planet is called, Yokton, in the Yokians and all that. It's very, it's very on the nose, but it's very clever. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. I love that little idea. You can tell that they had a lot of fun with the whole like coming up with the ideas of these chicken. Like, what would it be like if we had these aliens? They look like chickens, but they weren't chickens. They were the eggs. But their god was a giant alien chicken that they fed alien other species to. Again, I just love it. It's fantastic. Also, I really wanted to go to Retroland. Like, who didn't? You watch this movie, I really want to go to Retroland. I wanted to go on that Bat coaster. Like, I like these rides seem really, really like not safe, but then again, it is a kids' animated show, so you have a lot of leniency. But I wanted to go to Retroland so much. I wanted to go touch a llama. I wanted to meet Ultra Lord. I still want to meet Ultra Lord. I still want that Ultra Lord T-shirt. Can't believe I'm 25 and I still haven't got an Ultra Lord T-shirt. I need to make that happen. I wanted to go on that bat ride, that up and down roller coaster one. They go on one ride that, well, probably want to go on. It would be sick, but it was this octopus. I think it was called Octopuke. Probably want to go on it, but it looks awesome anyway. Um, who didn't want to go retro land when they were my age watching this? Like, it looks awesome. I want to go retro land. You know. And then obviously Jimmy sneaks out. Jimmy and his friends sneak out. They see a star. They wish upon it. Wish there was no more parents. Wake up the next morning, realize all parents are gone, as most children would do. No parents. It's time to party. You know, and if it just goes to complete anarchy. There are there's no uh, bedtime. There's unlimited candy, no rest, just partying, recklessly flooding the school and doing jet skis around the school. While you have their teacher, um, like Mrs. Fowl, she's there having her own little battle, like her own Dune. Her own Arrakis while she's on her table trying to fight this bloody giant caterpillar type worm that's like coming out of an apple, and she's got like like a I mean, was it like a cocktail weenie, cocktail stick sort of thing? But to her, it's like a giant spear, and she's trying to like spear this big creature away. I love it. Again, that's all it's funny. I didn't obviously growing up now in hindsight and having read Dune, it feels very much like Dune. It just made me laugh. Of like, yeah, she's having a Arrakis fight there going on. Um, but yeah, this is as you would imagine it would be. If they were woke up tomorrow and all adults, which me included, would disappear, and all the adults were left on their own. You would get the initial like, oh my god, this is incredible, let's party. There was like a show in the UK. This was like the early 2000s, and I only think it ran for one season. But they did two shows, one with boys, one with girls, and the idea behind it was you get a house and you put a bunch of kids in, bunch of lads, right? Young kids, bunch of young lads in one house, and a bunch of young girls in another house, right? And and it's like a social experiment. It was to watch what these kids would do. I don't remember the show, what it was called. I just remember that the lads basically went to complete anarchy. All they would do is buy sweets and things that weren't good for them, Coke and pop and all that kind of stuff. Other beverages, are available. Um, and they just destroyed the house. They trashed it, and it was like proper Lords of the Flies. And eventually there was a bit of a hierarchy system, and then some of the lads tried to clean up, other lads didn't want to, and it was like bullying. Didn't last very very long. The girls one was just as much chaotic, but a lot more organized, a lot more cleaner. And eventually, when after you like the anarchy stage didn't go on for long as with the girls. I think if I remember correctly, the girls ended up um, realizing that okay, we've had our fun. It's time to be a bit more sensible now, and they started eating a lot more healthier foods, and they started to look after each other and care for each other. And again, the reason I bring it up for oddly out of nowhere is just the fact of yeah, you would get that anarchy stage from kids, but eventually you would get sort of which happens in this movie of like I want my mother, I want my father, I want my parents, I want my mum, I want my dad. I don't like it. I'm panicking and complete breakdown. So that's what work. That works as well. Um, Again, it makes sense, but again, it's a cartoon. It doesn't really need to make sense, but that part really makes sense. Then we have the conversation where they all realize that Jimmy knows where the parents have gone. Jimmy explains to them they've been abducted by aliens, and that they need to go rescue them. So cue epic music montage, which they are creating spaceships out of theme park rides, which again is so childish, but also so fantastic. Like it does make sense, doesn't it? If you had the ability, but you want to make like spaceships, where else to go than the theme park, where all you got to do is find a roller coaster or ride that you like, and just use that as your base, and then put a huge sort of rocket engine on the end of it. You know, absolutely love it. Pardon me if I heard me burp, then I do apologise. But again, it makes perfect sense for this movie, and for the Jimmy Neutron and for the kids all works fantastically. Also, the idea of using "Kids in America" as a background song was a great choice. Um, as they take off. Um, but the only thing that again, another thing that I noticed when I was younger, this is not something that me being nitpicky now, this is something that I noticed when I was younger. But the whole idea of like let's not question how all the kids are breathing in space without any masks or breathing equipment. They are just like in the vacuum of space, just open, no masks on or anything, like no clothes set, just breathing somehow. But against a kids program, we gloss over it. But again, even as a kid, when I started to get more into science and realizing that actually no oxygen in space, I was a bit like, okay, like I understand like animation side, maybe it would have been too hard to animate, or it wouldn't have made sense, or like they wanted to make sure that all the characters could be seen from long distance to short distance and all that, so, and having like capsules and things like over the head probably wouldn't have made as much sense. Um, but yeah, like as a kid, I was like, oh, how are they breathing? And even as an adult, I was like, it doesn't matter as much. But I wanted to write down anyway in the notes because it was that one thing of like, let's just not question it. Let's just move on and be like, yep, they can breathe, it's fine. This makes sense in this world because it's a cartoon. And in cartoon world, anything makes sense. Um, so anyway, they make their way through space. They find the planet, see this new alien civilization, get captured, and it's literally one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. It's my favorite quote. And I'm going to quote it completely, right? So they get captured. They go up to the emperor, and then Cindy basically looks at the emperor, and I wrote it down. She goes, "You release our parents, you giant ball of phlegm." And Oobla goes, he goes, "How dare you? He is the royal phlegm," and it just made me chuckle. I love it so much. I burst out laughing. I did then, and I do now. And again, it was just the sort of the eye roll of the Emperor really at the back, being like, "Oh, for God's sake, Oobla! Like you're not making things any easier for me." And it kind of reminds me of like a Bug's Life where you had Hopper and you had his brother. His brother was a bit slow, bit sort of stupid, and Oobla's kind of the same, where he's a bit, bit slow, bit stupid, but we love him. He's lovable, and he's just got to put up with him because he's his brother. Basic same thing here, and I just love it. Again, I love Oobla. He's one of my favorites. Then they get sort of put into cells. They don't know how they're going to get out. The parents are going to be in. They're stuck there. Jimmy has a brainwave. He figures out after having a talk with Cindy that there is a way out. So they try. He managed to get Goddard back. Goddard plays dead, blows up, breaks them out of prison, comes back to life. Which again, why would that be a feature in the first place? Like play dead, funny, but why would you have a feature where your dog blows up? I don't. I don't think that was. I think that was like a. I think maybe if I remember correctly now, I generally think that was probably not was meant to happen. I think he was meant to just to play dead to roll over, but him blowing up is what he does. But again, it works perfectly. I think even Jimmy says himself, "We'll just keep that as a feature because it's helpful." As long as he builds himself back together like the Iron Giant, which he does, then it all works out for great. Then we get the moment where Nick he turns out not to be as a badass as possible as we all been led to think. We've led that Nick for this whole movie is a badass. He is the cool kid. He's like really like macho sort of badass sort of haha sort of kid. Don't even know what haha sort of kid is, but you know what I mean. Like he is a her sort of kid. The badass, the cool kid in class. And then he meets the chicken guard and he screams like a little girl and he runs away and they all look like, okay, what do we do? Like, and then Sheen's just like, we need another plan, hopefully a Nicholas one. Like, one thing I love about Sheen, which I didn't, I noticed but I didn't really pay much attention to until just now with watching this movie, but Sheen is not the brightest bulb in the bunch, right? He's not a clever one, right? But he's funny, he's great, he's but we love him, okay? But it just seems that he's kind of like Forrest Gump, like he might not be the fastest, but he is quite clever in his own little way. And there are many moments in this where like Nick is having a go at him, and he's like, "Don't pick on me just because you have commitment issues," Or there are like loads of moments in this where he just comes out with certain things, and you're like, "Ah, that actually makes sense." It was Gene who said it, but it makes sense. And none of the characters notice this. They just think of it's like his weird ramblings, but it just makes sense because it's Sheen. and again, he has some of the best quips and some of the best lines in this movie. Um, but yeah, so Nick run off screaming. He's no help. Then we have Jimmy comes and he has to save the day with another brain blast, figure it out what he has to do. They ends up saving their parents from Poltra, from doing the chicken dance, and it's happy ever after. Like I said, it's a very very quick movie. Like again, it's not a long film. It can be easily digested within like an hour and 20 minutes. And especially somebody like me who is a big fan of this film, it goes by a lot quicker for me, or at least it feels like it goes by a lot quicker. But overall, I just love it. I love it so much. I have so much love and nostalgia for it. Just yeah, growing up watching this, having it on VHS, then getting it on DVD, wanting to be the boy genius, wanting to grow up and just to be smart, to be clever, because I always felt like the idea of being smart and clever was cool, and that obviously you grow up and you realize smarts isn't cool. It is, but that's not what is portrayed when you're at school, really, is it? If you're a nerd, it's bad. But nowadays things have changed. But growing up, it probably wasn't. But I just embraced it. I liked knowing a lot of things about a lot of things. I love science. I love history. I love watching the documentaries with my dad. I spoke about it many, many times. Um, Again, because with my dyslexia as well, struggling reading, I always that was my way of kind of like getting information was from watching things that I felt that were interesting, which were like documentaries, because I couldn't get it from a book, which even though I really, really wanted to, I couldn't. So this was my way of kind of getting into those sort of topics. And yeah, I wanted to be the boy genius. I wanted to be Jimmy Neutron. I can't say I've grown up to do it. Like, I still went to college. I went to university. I've got a bachelor's of science. So I would say I got pretty far. Um, but that being said, no, I'm not on Einstein's level. I'm not on Jimmy Neutron's level. I haven't got a huge, probably high IQ. But I'm pretty good at quizzes. I'm pretty good at trivia. So if you ever need somebody else with general knowledge trivia, I'm pretty good. My team usually wins. Um, but yeah, so to steal a quote from one of my favorite podcasters, the Doom Gen, this movie doomed me to be forever a nerd, and that's fine with me. And I'm sure, and I hope the ladies won't mind me using their line, but it's true. That's what it's done. It's had me just to be a huge nostalgic nerd, and I love it for it. Like I said, I have so much love for this film. I can't express it enough unless I start speaking in other languages other than English, and that would be the only way that I can keep expressing just how much I love this movie. It is a movie that I watch regularly with my mum. Whenever it's on TV, we will stop what we're doing and we'll watch it. We will quote it all the time. Yeah, it's just so much love, so much nostalgia, and that's just not just what this podcast is about, but also that's kind of what life is about. The whole idea of looking back at your childhood and reminiscing of when times were simpler, times were easier. And again, many times when I watch this movie and many other movies from my childhood, I watch it and I remember certain moments, like where I was in certain times, watching this movie, what I was doing, how old I was, and what I looked like in old houses and bedrooms and sort of things like that. And it's just lovely to have those memories, sort of that you thought you forgot, but come back and sort of really resonate with you. Like, oh, I remember that. That was nice. I remember I was sitting down eating, beans on toast, wearing a nappy, watching Takeshi's Castle, which if you live in the UK, you know what Takeshi's Castle is. But I remember, yeah, sitting there, always deemed to love beans, always Howdy beans. It started when I was very young. But yeah, I remember it, watching Takeshi's Castle, hula hoops and beans on toast, eating beans or spaghetti hoops. It was great. And again, this nostalgia. But there was a quote that I found quite recently that I wanted to share. I didn't get the name of who the quote was off, but I wanted to share it with you here. So the quote goes like this: the Greek word for return is nostos. Algos means suffering. So nostalgia is the suffering caused by an unappeased yearning to return. So my interpretation of that, using a bit of my English literature here, is that the idea is nostalgia is wanting to return back to a simpler time, return back to a time that was better. You know, that you are no longer pleased or happy with the time you're in now. So you want to remember a time where you were happy or you were better or times were easier or just when things were just better. You know, you hear off old people all the time. Back when I was younger, things were better. Well, they probably were. They probably weren't. But when you were younger, everything felt better because it was better because you didn't have any worries. You didn't have to worry about things. You didn't have to worry about, um, you know, having to pay bills and getting a job and getting up early and driving here, driving there, and doing all this. You didn't have to worry about that stuff. Generally, your day was get up, go to school, go home, play Xbox, watch TV, talk to your mates, maybe do homework. If you did homework, I didn't, but you know, that was it. You know, you didn't have anything to worry about. Life was easy, life was simple, and that's nostalgia. You know, just that yearning to return to a time when things were better. You know, and I wish I caught the person that quote is off, but I think it's a fantastic quote. Just wanted to return, and that's what I not just try to do with this podcast, and not just try to do with these episodes, but it's what I try to do in general in my own life. Really, is that I'm nostalgic for things that were just better because not that life isn't great now. I enjoy my life where I am and what I've done up until this point, but I have my moments where I'm like, I would rather just go back in time in my own mind and just enjoy the simpler times. And Jimmy Neutron is definitely one of those movies where I can just put it on and just forget about anything that I was worrying about for a good hour, you know. And I'm sure you guys listening to this have those movies, have those games, books, shows, whatever. You have that thing that just makes you just forget about the world, forget about the worries, and just focus on smiling, being happy, you know. And this movie makes me laugh. I love it. Yeah, you could probably hear better Jimmy Neutron reviews than this one, but this one probably won't. Any one that you hear probably won't be as full as love and enjoyment and just pure nostalgia. Like I'm that lost for words and that full of joy and love about this movie that I can't put two words together. I've stuttered more than I have in most of my recent episodes. I'm repeating myself over and over again, even though I've got the notes in front of me, because this is where like my brain gets to the point where I'm so elated with joy and happiness that I can't get my words out, that I stutter more, or that I repeat myself because I am just so my brain's just going 10 to dozen. Like I know what I want to say, but my mouth can't keep up with me. So again, I do apologize for that. But I just to know this, I am incredibly full of joy at the moment, and I just can't explain anymore without repeating myself how much this movie means to me, without getting emotional. So before I get emotional, I love this movie, and that is the end, really. Generally, if you haven't seen it, treat yourself. If you have seen it, you know how wonderful it is. And I think from here, I think I've decided. Yeah, I'm going to watch a lot more Nickelodeon movies. You know, you've got the Rugrats movies. They did quite a few of those. They got Wild Thornberries. They also crossed over the Wild Thornberries with what's called it. Oh, what's his name? The Rugrats. Only the animated ones. Like I'm not going to do Hotel for Dogs, even though I quite like Hotel for Dogs. Not going to do Hotel for Dogs or anything like that. I'll stick to the animated ones. Even Barnyard. Oh, good. Remember Barnyard? Carl, there's a cow outside. It's a cow farm. There's gotta be cows outside. Oh God, that movie was weird. Still is very, very much weird. And they made a TV show of it as well. Like Nickelodeon had this thing where like they would, because how successful Jimmy Neutron was, that if they had an idea for a TV show, they sometimes, not all the times, but they would do a movie first, and then they would do a TV show. So it wasn't Jimmy Neutron. They did it for Barnyard as well. I never watched the show, but I remember watching the movie. Um, but yeah, I think I've decided I'm going to watch a lot more animated Nickelodeon films because I just love these films and I watch majority of all of them and they all have a nostalgia bone in me. I remember waking up again. I know I'm going on for like 34 minutes here, but I remember This is what happens when you get me in a nostalgia, joyous bubble. This thing happens where I just reminisce so much. But I remember, it wasn't last Christmas, it was the Christmas before. My mum had to get us up early because she had to go to work that day. So we got really, really early, about 6 o'clock in the morning, to get to open up the presents so we could open them all up with my brother and then she can go to work. And one tradition we always do is that we'll have cereal first and we'll put the TV on and then we'll watch a Christmas movie and that'll be on in the background while we open our presents. And it's like a Christmas tradition. Anyway, early in the morning, none of the Christmas movies had started yet, but I think Channel 4 or Film 4 here in the UK had the Wild Thornberries, the Rugrats Go Wild with the Wild Thornberries, I think it's called, or Rugrats Go Wild. That was on. That had just started, and I remember watching that, not focusing much on what I was opening for my presents. And then my mum went to work, and we kind of put our presents into a pile. It was just me and my brother, yawning. Really, we're still very much tired, like drinking tea, because we're English. So that's, of course, that's what we do. Um, Watching the Wild Thornberries and the Rugrats. My brother had never seen it before, and I was getting like a huge nostalgia sort of high, and I was just happy because it was Christmas Day and everything else, and it was just lovely. And I haven't seen that movie in a very, very long time, so very much like that's another movie that I'll get round to eventually. I've got to review the first, the Wild Thornberries movie with Liza Elizabeth and her dad, Nigel. Ha! Yeah, that was a really bad Tim Curry impression. Smashing that. Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. It's been a long time since I've watched the Wild Thornberries, and when we get round to that one, I will do all the really horrible quotes and impressions. But until then, you're safe. But yeah, that has been my review of the Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, as well as the end of my nostalgia sort of rant. Thank you for coming to my TED talk about nostalgia. Thank you. It means a lot. But if you like what you heard, you can follow me at Twitter at Nerdstalgic_pod to keep up to date on everything and anything that I am watching, playing, reading, and all that jazz. Also, you can find this podcast basically anywhere and everywhere that there are podcasts. Just search if you actually can go on Google and type in the Nerdstalgic podcast, you can find every outlet that I'm on. I'm also on Audible. The only place I'm not is I'm not on Apple podcast. Apart from that, I'm everywhere else. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Also, if you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to give me a star rating, 1 to 5 stars. Whatever rating that you go with, 5 stars, best thing you heard in your life, to 1 star, absolute trash. Whatever you feel like is fair, you have a choice between 1 to 5 stars, and it helps me go up the algorithm. So the higher my score, the more chance that my podcast gets seen on Spotify. So it would help me out immensely. And yes, so I'm 37 minutes deep. I have rambled on enough. I tend to waffle, I know, but as you beings know, that's just what I do. And especially when I get in my very nostalgia high, I just tend to go on for longer than I plan to. So I'm going to end it here now. Thank you very, very much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. It means so, so much to me. It really, really does. I wouldn't be here without you all. So thank you for that. You've been listening to me, your host, Luke, as well as you've been listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast. Thank you very, very much once again. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.